We'll just go. So, Shane, welcome to the Yerba Power Podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Devin. Thanks so much for having me on today, man. Randomly chose this day, and it happens to be your 1 year, sober. So congrats on that, man. And it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you. Yes, we were just talking about that. A divine appointment. We got this day because you chose this day about a week ago, or probably 2 weeks ago, actually. So it wasn't like I told you ahead of time. I don't think. For you guys that don't know, Shane Raymer is a guy that has a podcast called the Sober Guy Podcast and talks about sobriety. For like 9, 10 years now, probably
Yeah, yeah.
something, give or take.
let's see. I had not 10 years in September 11th.
Mm,
And then that sober guy, I started in the spring of 2014. So we're coming up on 10 years
wow,
with that sober guy too, which is crazy to me. So,
that
um,
is crazy.
yeah,
Did you ever
almost,
think you would go
almost.
that far?
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I was like, there wasn't a lot of podcast stuff. Podcasting wasn't it wasn't really well
Yeah,
known back then. And so I have a music background in music. So I had some production experience and some equipment. So I kind of hodgepodged, some stuff together and man, started sharing a little bit. And yeah, almost 10 years later, it's pretty crazy.
yeah, I can't imagine what it was like to get started back then, where now it is a lot easier. Just for you guys that have been still sitting on the fence and wanting to start one. Basically, what I did. I still don't
Yeah.
know what I'm doing, but hey, we're still plugging along and it's fun. And it's a great way to get message and meet people like you. And so, long
Yeah.
story short, of just like helping connect the bridge to people, like so Shane and I first I think I stalked you on Instagram or something where you shared some clean cause, which
Yeah.
if you guys that don't know, I've shared it on my Instagram some, but they have yerba mate drink, and what they do is their benefits for addiction recovery programs, which we are both are 100% behind, and we're good on that. We're all for them on that, and that's kind of, I guess, basically our common tie, other than Larry Hagner, who is the founder of Dad's Edge
Mm,
Alliance, which was on
yeah.
your podcast about a year ago. I've listened to that one, which is a great episode. It's a mastermind about uh, fatherhood, basically,
Yeah.
how to be a dad, and marriage and just raising kids and the stuff that people don't give you an instruction manual for. So
Yeah. Larry
yeah,
was one of the first guys to, like, to your point too of um one of the cool things about podcasting and just the whole community is meeting different people. And Larry was one of the first guys I met back in, I think I met him in 2015, maybe. It wasn't long after. So there's a couple older episodes I think on there too from even when he kind of first was starting out. And I just love the idea of, people being able to start little podcasts and companies and um with stuff that they're passionate about working towards, and having fun at the same time. So that's pretty awesome. And Larry's a great dude, man. I love that guy.
oh yeah, and for you guys that don't know, which there's a actual summit going on right now in St. Louis that I went the
Mm,
last 2 years, but I'm obviously not there right now. So
nice.
FOMO right now, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shout out to Larry and the Dad's Edge Alliance and all those guys at the summit right now. So that's, I guess, the long story short of kind of how we connected, and why I'm honored to have him on is because, like you just mentioned, I'm when you're sober, and reached out to you because you have a message to tell, and I kind of want to piggyback off that, but I want you to be able to share your message and kind of maybe answer some of the maybe questions, just your story in general, whatever you feel led to share. It's all your space, but um, kind of, I think, bringing light to it, and personally me being an advocate for that, and kind of share my story. And yeah, I you know that's pretty much it, and kind of just acknowledging that 1 year, and this being a kind of a highlight to you be on that episode. So
Yeah. No, yeah, great. glad to chat today, man. Yeah, where do you want me to start? You got questions, or you want me to just dive into the old background, or I'll
Be
probably,
you, Shane.
yeah, okay. All right. Well, I,
What would you,
I
what
think
would
that,
you, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, I think that the more that I've grown and then taken a step back and then grown and then taken 5 steps back sometimes and then grown, like this whole process has been, um, just that, a process. And it's been just that, a practice. And it's been lots of ups and downs and a lot of wins along the way. And then a lot of like challenging things where I felt like they were losses along the way or mistakes, and um, I think that it does build some character in that, in that time. Um, and I guess what I'm getting at is I really like to talk today um, about that, about the process, but about like where it's at today versus going back on like, I drank for 17 years and did drugs and like, I mean, yes, that's a part of my past and my teens and my 20s and my very early 30s. But man, it's just like it got to a point where it was just so exhausting and it wasn't fun anymore. And I had a young family and um I had two things happen like towards the end because I tried to quit drinking um for a few years, and I always went back to it. It always ended up creeping back in. I'd put a couple weeks together. I think I almost put a month together at one point, just trying to kind of white knuckle it and do it on my own. And it just never worked. I always went back to it. And it got to a point where two things I felt in my gut. One, I felt something really bad was about to happen if I didn't stop. And this was a daily occurrence, basically. Waking up swearing I wasn't gonna drink, and then being intoxicated by noon, and going to work, and working intoxicated, and coming home intoxicated, and like it was a bad cycle. And the other feeling, so one, the feeling something really bad was about to happen, and then the other feeling was I really felt God tugging on like my heart and saying to me, and it wasn't more saying like audible or anything, but just this feeling like that my life was there was much more that God had for my life. And not just for my life, but my family's life. Like my daughter was two and a half around this time. Um, or so, three, I guess, yeah. When I had was kind of at the end of my rope here and having to figure out what I was going to do. Um, and so I I had to admit, that there were some issues there, which I did, and then I went and I got some help at a treatment center out here in Northern California in a little town called Sebastopol, and I, yeah, I mean, I dove in head first, like I really did. And just to give like a little context in like numbers wise, because I know numbers can help kind of illustrate things sometimes. There was 35 people, roughly, men, women, in the facility that I was in for 30 days, and they kind of filter in and out, obviously, because 30 days, some people would come when someone's on their 29th day, and then you get a new person. But generally, out of those 35 people, um, I'm the only one who's still sober today. Out of those 35. So I know that there's been other folks who were able to put years. Well, let me take that back. I don't know that I'm the only one sober today, but I know that I'm the only one with continuous sobriety since then, since 2013. That's the right way to put it. And so it really does show that this tool that a lot of us use called alcohol, and I'll just focus on that because that was really the main kind of focal point for me. There was other substances and pills and stuff too, but it really did revolve around alcohol. And I saw a lot of that growing up as a kid as well, with my own father. So that alcoholism, the drinking was the foundation, I guess. And that tool is used so much today to deal and to cope and to be happy and to be sad and to not feel. And I always like to kind of tee that up with this is like, yes, alcohol became a crutch. It became a tool that I used, but alcohol was kind of not so much the problem. The problem was I didn't know how to feel and I didn't want to feel and I didn't know how to deal with life on life's terms. You know, there was a lot of stuff there, a lot of hurts, a lot of hangups, a lot of resentments, like angry kid stuff, you know, from when I was a kid. And so as I got older, they call it a case of I'm trying to not say the F word because it's bad, but a case of the F-its, they'll call it. We'll say the funkits. Let's funk, you know, like funk, whatever. You get that. And I had a big case of that, like just the middle fingers, man, to the world. Like, I don't care. I'm just going to be crazy. And I was in all kinds of bands and like punk rock and which I had a lot of fun with, you know, but man, and it was chaotic, you know, that trying to do that. And so, um, you know, once I got home from going to treatment, like the 30 days was kind of the easy part, um, in a sense. And I think part of it was I was so hungry to like change, you know. And so I was very dialed in there and I was like a sponge, man. I didn't want to go back to that. But when I went home, it was so different because now it's like, oh, you're supposed to be this like new sober person. And like all my wife and I knew at that time was partying together. And we've known each other a long time. But our idea of communication was going out on a Friday night and going and partying. And then once we got intoxicated, now we could talk. Now we could have fun. You know, and so having to come around, it was like really like I had to learn who my wife was, and she really had to learn who I was again, as I'm learning who I am. So there's a lot there, you know. And I think starting the podcast helped with some of that. I gave up music when I got sober. I gave it up from the lens of like trying to do it as a career, like be in the music business, which is really what I wanted to do for a long time. Um, and the reality of it was I was really just using that as a way to party too. So I had no like business aspect of it. Like it wasn't business minded. It was just like, I'm in a band and we're gonna go play and have fun and party. And so when I got sober, it was like, man, that I didn't really feel like connected to that anymore. And so kind of inadvertently, that's how I got into podcasting. Um, and I really wanted to share, like when I looked up to like sober podcasts or recovery, there wasn't anything. Like there was Dr. Drew. I think there was an AA podcast because I was actually looking for something to listen to. I started listening to a show called The New Man with a buddy of mine, Trip Lanier, who I didn't know at the time, but he was just super inspiring, and just does amazing work for men. And that's kind of what motivated me to start Sober Guy. And then I figured if I could help other people by sharing some of the stuff that I was going through, that maybe it would help me stay sober too and have some accountability. And then also like bring in some of that spark of that fun and that excitement that I loved with music. I could bring it into podcasting and I was able to kind of gain some of that back. As I started to do it, I started to feel creative again. Like I'm an artist by heart. Like I love music, drawing, wordplay, poetry, like all that. And so like being able to do that in that time was really crucial. And man, yeah, I went to a lot of meetings, a lot of therapy. I've been to every 12 step you could probably think of, like CR, AA, NA, refuge recovery. I mean, and I wanted to I want a piece of like everything. And like, I'm just trying to like soak it in and just be better, you know? Um, and so, yeah. And then, man, I didn't really know what the podcast was going to do. I just knew that there was a space and a need for it. Um, and then I was able eventually to transition that. I'd already worked for like a corporate 250 company in customer service, and then I took that concept of podcasting and brought it in and pitched it as an idea in there, which ended up doing great. And so it's like, that's what I do full time now is podcasting, media, so I really do get to, like, when we talk about vocation, like people, like even I, till not so long ago, thought vocation of like work. But vocation is really comes from a Christian background, and it's actually a calling on your life, like your vocation. So it's not just the work you do, but it's the reason and the emotion and the attachment and the love and that you get to do. And so I really do feel, at least at this time of my life, like I've been blessed with like a vocation, not just a job. I came from doing drywall. Like I sanded ceilings for 8 hours a day for months on end, like in San Francisco and the Bay Area. And I remember, and I know I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but I'll hopefully kind of tie it together. Like before I got sober, I was in the union and doing drywall, and I remember literally sanding ceilings one day, which is, I mean, it's hard ass work, and you make good money. Like you can make some great money in the trades, no doubt, but it beats your body up, and it's difficult. And I remember literally crying, like tears, like, I mean, not bawling like on the floor or anything, but literally standing there, like I got dust all over me, I'm just like, I probably hung over, like not feeling great, and like just crying and just going like, God, like I know there's more for my life. And that's not a slight to like the trades or drywall or anything, but like for me, I just felt like there was um, something different for me, that like a vocation, not just a job. And that was just a job for me, which I'm very happy that I learned that trade too. I just did redid our kitchen. My father-in-law put some can lighting in, and like he came in and did that, and I was able to go in and button it all up and spray it. And so I mean, it definitely taught me so much, not just the trades, but um, just about being like working through adversity and stuff too. So let me just stop there and kind of, I know I said a lot there. I just looked at our little time thing here, but man, and every time I share, it's always different, even though there's all stuff because there's so much. But yeah, man.
Well, first and foremost, I want to honor you for sharing your story because there's power in the story, which I'm learning. And no matter how many podcasts you guest appearance on or how many podcasts you do, there's always a different person who needs to hear your story. So thank you. And I want to honor you for sharing that story because, just because you've said it 1,000 times, I've never heard it. And whoever's listening to this afterwards has probably never heard it too. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I do have some points that you made that are resonating with me personally and maybe someone else, that you expressed more eloquently than I processed it, but now it's like, okay, that makes sense. For same, you said like podcast is kind of almost a therapy or an outlet.
Hmm.
You didn't use those words, but essentially allows you to be creative and also kind of express yourself in some kind of way and have fun. Like, I know that sounds corny, but one of my main concerns, and probably yours too, when you quit drinking, is like, well, now I can't have fun, or it will be no fun,
Yeah,
or I won't be fun. I'll be boring because, I'm always the cool guy at the party because you drink, and then you're the cool
yeah,
guy, right? Or at least you think you're cool, anyways.
yeah,
And I came from a fraternity partying style, so that was kind of basically how I got
yeah,
into it. And same thing, it's like, well, I'm not going to dance and have fun if like I'm not, you know, liquid up a
yeah.
little
Got to be
bit. Like
loosened up a little bit.
yeah, I got to loosen up a little bit.
Yeah,
And so it is as corny as that may sound, but that's true. Like this allows me to outlet to have fun, and probably like you said, if I weren't clear minded as I was, I probably wouldn't be doing this now because I'm not thinking that. I'm just
yeah,
thinking about the next, yesterday was a crappy day, so I'm going to use this outlet or this escape, as you said, a tool. But I think that gives it almost a power instead of, it's not really a tool. I mean, I guess it could be a tool because I mean, I guess a butcher knife is a tool, depending
sure.
on how you use it,
Hmm.
I guess, but so that, as far as the fun, I think is one thing, to
Can
address
I
personally. But
can
yeah,
I say one thing, and I'll keep it real quick. Like, it's so important for anybody listening, like right now, what you were just talking about and what we both were kind of hitting on is finding something that you enjoy to do. Going back to when you were a kid, when we had that childlike spirit and we were free and we had genuine joy, not fun, but I'm talking about joy. There's a big difference. And when you find something that you love to do and you can rekindle that, call it a hobby, call it a side hustle, call it whatever you want, whatever it is that you enjoy to do, find that and do it, because that is going to help carry you through getting through those times when you're making those big changes in your life, whether it's quitting drinking, go down the list of different things that we struggle with. It's huge.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And that's actually another point I was going to make is replacing basically a bad habit with a good habit.
Yeah.
Which you've only probably just learned about yerba mate, like the traditional. I don't know if you've seen it this
Yeah, I
way.
see that. Yeah.
Um,
I saw it
but
from you. Yeah, you were like the
okay.
first dude I saw stirring it up on there. I was like, whoa, that's
Well,
cool, man. Yeah.
we'll get you started on it one day. We'll table that for later. I'm going to get you on the real
Yeah.
thing because I like Clean Cause, definitely all for what they do.
Yeah.
And this is not any, I'm not trying to
Oh,
take
they're
shots
great.
at
Yeah,
anybody,
I got you. Yeah.
but it's getting it from the original source, like the
It's
actual leaves
different.
themselves. It's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
However, um, replacing a bad habit with a good habit. And that's kind of like, okay, well, this is not necessarily like replacing, but this kind of helps me too, Yerba Mate, as far as like the anxiety kind of stuff and those, like
Yeah.
having something to do and a ritual of pouring it, preparing it, talking about it.
Yeah.
Like you said, that not necessarily outlet, but something I enjoy talking about that allows me to have that passion about that stuff. And
Yeah.
I got into running, endurance running ultra marathons and crazy stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
And it's interesting for you to put those words on because that is a positive, you know, joy, as crazy as that
Yeah.
sounds, to just be free and just run and not worried about other stuff going on. And also when I think about those times when life is rough and what happens is like I've done hard things before. And so it's like I literally just, ran, 46 miles overnight one time over the summer. And it's like, and I
Dang.
think about that, I was like, how crazy is that? It's like, okay, this isn't that big of a deal, right? You kind of put stuff in perspective. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I'm some badass or anything, but it's like it's just putting those things in perspective of like having those outlets or whatever and
Yeah.
um or good habits I guess is better than an outlet. But a passion, a joy is something that you and I guess this podcast is kind of part of that. Same for you, is just kind of something I can enjoy and keep persistent consistency, discipline on that is doing something positive for the world in whatever,
Sure, man.
realm.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, we've only got a few more minutes, and I want to honor you by thank you for coming on the show because um, I'm coming up on yours here pretty soon, I think too, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll be
Yep.
excited to share my side of it. Thank you for allowing me to be on yours. But in the next, few minutes, where can people find you, and also what are maybe some things? I know you have a 30-day challenge, but maybe that's something you want to talk to people about that are maybe curious or thinking about it, or just that kind of stuff. What maybe some advice or things that you'd like to share with the audience that are listening on those
Yeah.
aspects?
Yeah, sure. Um, Thanks again for having me on. Number one, I'm definitely excited to learn more about the yerba mate for sure. And do you say it yerba mate,
Yerba,
or
mhm,
you do pronounce the Y?
the white,
Because
correct.
okay, gotcha. Okay, see, I'm even learning
Well,
pronunciations
at
at
least you
this
said
point, which is great.
mate instead of
Mate,
mate. Instead
yerba
of
mate.
mate,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I
instead of
think the
mate.
first
So
time I did,
yerba
I said
mate,
a
yeah,
long
yeah,
time ago. Yeah, yerba
yeah.
mate.
So
Let me get
that's
some
the
of
that's
that
the more
yerba
important
mate.
part is getting the mate instead of
Yeah,
the yerba. The mate part is
yerba
the
mate.
the
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm excited to learn more about that. But if anyone wants to get more info, I mean, the easiest thing is to go to thatsoberguide.com. Everything's there. We have a 30-day challenge called the Quit Drinking Dude Challenge, and basically it's 30 podcasts in 30 days. And there's exercises. There's a community built around it in our locals men's group. So accountability is huge in anything that we're gonna that you're gonna do and try to change. And then you can follow us on Instagram at that sober guy podcast as well. As far as tips, man, just like you're not alone. I think that's always a big one. A lot of us, it's easy to get isolated and feel like we're the only one going through something, and we're the only one going through this. And that's just not true. And there's a lot of other people out there who are going through similar stuff, who need people just as much as you do. If you're listening to this and struggling right now, so I would just say, you know, don't quit, don't isolate, and don't don't be afraid to reach out. Like there's strength in asking for help, and it doesn't mean, especially as dudes, there's this connotation that like, oh, you're weak, that's we don't ask for help. And that's just not, it's not the case, man. We all need some help sometimes at some point. And then guess what? When you help someone else, you're going to find that God provides for your needs too. It's crazy how it works, but I know it to be true, like for my own experience and many others that I've talked to. So, yeah, check out the podcast. You get it on Spotify, iTunes, wherever. We have almost 500 episodes, lots of great content on there, different guests and lots of different topics that, of course, staying sober is the main foundation, but there's all kinds of stuff around it, from fitness to parenting, homeschool. I mean, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, just thanks again for having me on too, Devin. I'm excited to have you on Sober Guy in the next few weeks, bro.
Well, thanks Shane for joining us. Especially, we didn't talk about it on the on our just now, but I'll just say for you guys, he just got finished like fixing his daughter's like bathroom flooded, and he had all kinds of stuff going on today. So the fact that he made it to this call is great. So guys, I'll put everything in the show notes and links and stuff, so we won't miss anything. We'll get it all there. Make sure you check out the Sober Guy website, soberguy.com, and Sober Guy podcast, which not only has it got great stuff there, but I'll be on there soon. So give you another reason to check it out. And until, I guess, next time, and all the best for you. And let's continue on the journey, onward and upward.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.